Good afternoon. Okay, so I'll give you a brief introduction into who I am. You all speak English, right? Yeah, good. Because my German is crap. Actually, she's very well behaved, but she's at home. So, my brother and I published. We've been involved in the open source world since the beginning, since the 90s, and we co-published Apache SSL then. And because of that, got very involved in security and have kind of focused on anything to do with security, but sticking with open source. I also wrote the world's first CD ripper software called CD Grab, which was in the early 90s, which was kind of a dumb thing to do in the early 90s because, and I did it because I got into a debate with someone from, I think it was Sony, on a bulletin board. We had this long discussion where he was telling me in great technical detail why it was impossible to read data from a CD. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, you know, the data is on there, the CD player's reading it, it must be possible to read. And so I took that as a challenge and I started working on the problem of how to read data from a CD. And eventually we cracked it and we managed to read the data. But as I say, it wasn't a great idea because in those days, the CD cost like 15 euros. The hard disk, the 600 megabytes of data that I'd just taken off and filled up my hard disk with, because that was the capacity of the hard disk, cost about £300. So, you know, not very bright, but it was an interesting challenge. And of course now, you know, we take CD ripping for granted. I'm also known in the hacker community as Major Malfunction. I'm a goon at DEF CON, which, how many of you have been to DEF CON? One. Come on, represent, come on guys. No, okay. Big conference over in the States. We had about 8,000 attendees this year. And I run the London group. There's also, I think there's a Swiss group now. They alternate between Zurich and Bern or something like this. So yeah, I was hoping to meet the organizer, but unfortunately timings got screwed up, so I didn't. But I run the London DEF CON group, so if you're ever in London, we have meetings once a month. It's called DC 4420, country code 44, area code 20 for London. And actually our next meeting is tonight, so if any of you want to fly home with me, come to the meeting, you're welcome. But yeah, once a month we have a gathering. I also do sort of freelance research, speaking, training, weddings, bar mitzvahs. Got to get my kids through school somehow, you know. So. And what I'm actually focusing on now is what we in the UK call convergence, which is where physical and IT security teams are being merged or converged. So you have one team who's in charge of all the physical security and the IT security, which is great because the physical guys know nothing about IT security and the IT guys know nothing about physical security. You put the two together and everything's just broken. So it's lovely. And actually it's a big deal. I went to an IT conference recently and they had compiled some statistics. And they actually worked out that 50% of all data losses that had been reported last year were due to physical compromise. So it's not just network hacking, I mean people walking in and stealing servers, or walking in and putting devices onto the network. So it actually is really a big issue. So this is what my new company does. We call Aperture Labs, and we focus on research in those areas and awareness training and building toys for breaking into buildings, which is great fun. So just very quickly, the kind of things I do, I like to break things. I like to use simple tools to break, you know, potentially complex things. Very often I find with security products and protocols, people look for the difficult crack when there's actually a really easy one. So I tend to just bumble around like an idiot, which is why RFID stuff is called RFIDIot, because it's looking at RFID from the idiot's point of view. But very often, you know, as an idiot, you stumble into places that you shouldn't be because you don't understand the rules and you don't play by the rules, and so you find things that you might not otherwise find. This is, I'm going to show you a quick video to just kind of illustrate some of the stuff that I like to get up to. I travel a lot, I go to conferences, so I end up spending a lot of time in hotels, kind of in the middle of the night, wrong time zone, nothing to do, surrounded by a lot of interesting security devices, shall we say, and challenges. And well, it is a challenge, and I encourage people to think of it as a challenge. If you're gonna be a security guy or girl, sorry, you need to think about this stuff all the time, and you need to look at your environment, and you need to just develop a mindset where you try and think like the engineers think. And very often technologies, they evolve. So hotels are a really good example. So the locking systems in hotels and the control system, I mean, if you think about a hotel, it is a whole bunch of technology that's designed to control you and make you do things in a certain way. So generally when you check into a hotel, the only time you're going to have any interaction with the hotel staff is at that moment when you check in and you identify yourself, and they then give you a key. And that key is then your token to everything else. It lets you into the room. Inside the room you have devices that maybe, you know, the minibar that will automatically charge you for taking out drinks, or at least that's what it's supposed to do. The TV where you can do pay-per-view, you can check out, you can do all sorts of stuff. So they've put all this technology in. But everything from the room key is an evolution. So, you know, the room key itself used to be like a plastic card with some holes in. And if they wanted to change the lock, they would have to take an identical plastic card with holes in and physically go to the lock and replace it to rekey the lock. So then someone came up with a brilliant idea of putting it on a mag stripe instead. But the data that went on the mag stripe is the same pattern of bits that was in the punched holes. And then the next generation we're seeing RFID cards, and the RFID card that opens your hotel door is just carrying the same data. So you've got a carrier change without anyone taking a step back and rethinking the technology. And so very often by just kind of following those evolutions and understanding how the engineers were thinking, you can actually find the simple entrances into systems. Bluetooth is a good example of that. You know, Bluetooth protocol started as a piece of wire, you know, an over-the-wire protocol where you plugged your serial port into your phone, then it became infrared, then it became Bluetooth. The underlying assumption was you were authorized to connect because you had a piece of wire. Now you've got a Bluetooth which is transmitting your phone to the room next door. Suddenly you've opened it up to a whole new audience. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of, you know, how you have to think about these things. And so this little video I'm going to show you is me playing with a device in the hotel. How many of you are staying in a hotel tonight? Okay. Have you got anything in your hotel safe? No? Excellent. So this is a video. I was staying in a hotel and I played around with the safe and I figured out how to do something with it. And then I went to the website of the manufacturer and I printed out their blurb saying how wonderful their product is. And so the video you're about to see is me playing with the safe and somebody reading the website and telling you how marvelous this safe is. Okay, so.
Through the past 3 decades, we have developed the largest line of in-room hotel safes in the world, specifically designed with the particular needs of the hospitality industry in mind. Our safes are available in a wide variety of dimensions and colors, with either electronic or mechanical locking systems. Manufacturer continuously researches the development of new features, functions, options, and designs for its products. From removable core locks to a variety of electronic systems with digital keypad, credit card readers, or chip cards, manufacturer offers you products in the forefront technology. Our safes are installed in the most prestigious hotels and cruise lines throughout the world, which have recognized manufacturer for its quality, warranty, and superb technical service. Our uncompromising pledge of satisfaction to the client
Thank you. So yeah, under 60 seconds with a paper clip and a pair of pliers, and that was going slowly for the camera. So just because somebody tells you something is a security product doesn't mean it's actually secure. That's one of the lessons from that. And you know, simple tools to do a simple job, which is get into your hotel safe undetected. Okay, so the thing I was actually asked to come and talk about today was ePassports, because I understand you've recently had a vote and you've unanimously decided to have passports with chips in them. Is that right? Yeah, everyone's nodding. Excellent. If you're not sure if your passport has a chip in it, this little logo here is the clue. Okay, so this is the international standard logo that says my passport has a chip in it. All these countries are now issuing them. I think you haven't actually issued any yet, but I have seen a sample, and believe me, it's the same as the ones we're going to play with now. So in your passport you will have a whole bunch of things, up to 48 items of data, fingerprint, facial image, potentially the birth certificate. They're talking about actually storing a scan of the document that you used to obtain your passport in the first place. So if you go to the passport office and you present your birth certificate to prove you are who you say you are, they'll scan it and they'll put a digital image of that in the passport along with your fingerprint and your facial info and all your other data. So yeah, an identity thief's paradise. This device has got everything you need to steal your identity in one handy package. Okay. So lovely. They do try and protect it. And they protect it using a couple of things. So one of the first issues with RFID passports was privacy. People were concerned about tracking. So being able to track you by just seeing you've got a chip in your passport and reading it from a distance. One of the fundamental things an RFID tag does is when you present a tag to a reader, it gives out a unique ID or UID. Sometimes called a CSN, a card serial number. And that number is unique to that card. And actually a lot of systems rely on that uniqueness. So if it's a door entry card, it has to be unique to identify that particular individual. With passports, they actually don't use a unique ID. It still gives out a number, but it's pseudo-random. So it'll be different every time. The idea being that I can't walk past you on the street, read your passport and go, oh look, he's number 1234. And then when I see him again, I know that he's gone by. And that's meant to defend against things like, you know, making a bomb that goes off when a particular ID goes by. However, you can actually profile a lot of passports. So I might not be able to tell which passport it is, but I can probably tell which country it comes from. So I could still build a bomb which goes off when, say, an American goes by, or when the right number of Americans go by. What the right number is, I'll leave up to you guys. But you know, you could do stuff like that. So that's potentially bad. However, I can't walk past you on the street and just read the content of the passport. To do that, I have to authenticate to the passport, and I have to present a key, and I have to log in, and then I gain access to the data. And to do this, they use a thing called basic access control. And what basic access control says is, you don't have to secure the passport, but if you do, you have to do it like this. So they mandate the use of 3DES as the encryption system. 3DES, does anyone know what kind of cipher 3DES is? Any ideas? No, I'm thinking of in terms of keys. What kind of keys do you use? Okay, yeah, going to too low detail. Okay, what I'm thinking of is it's actually a symmetric. It's what's called a symmetric cipher. Okay, so you're going for the complicated answer when the simple one would do. The difference between a symmetric cipher and something like PKI. So with PKI, you have a public key and a private key. If you tell someone your public key, they don't have any clues as to what your private key is. With 3DES, there is no public key, private key. There's one key. So if you can decrypt data, you can encrypt data. and that will become important later on, as you'll see. The other thing you can do is you can encrypt the content, and to do this they use extended access control. And with extended access control, again, the standard doesn't mandate that you use it. It says you can use it if you want. If you use it, you can use any crypto system you want. So there is no standard. You can do that any way you like. And as a result, I don't think many people are going to use it, because what's the point in encrypting stuff that nobody else can decrypt? Okay, so I haven't seen any extended access control yet. Okay, so we've got this passport. It's got all this lovely valuable data that you want to stop the identity thieves getting hold of, but you need a key to read it. So where do we put this really important key that's protecting your really valuable data? Any guesses? How about we print it on the passport? That's nice and handy. So document number, date of birth, expiry date, you glue those three fields together. That's your 3-DES key. Okay. So once you've got that, you can log into the passport and you can read it. So I wrote some software to do exactly that, to actually, when these passports came out and I started playing with RFID, I wrote the software to log in and see what was on my passport, or on my son's passport, because I didn't have one with a chip in it. And then the guy called Jerome Van Beek came along and he said, well, if we can read the passports, why don't we write an app that emulates a passport, and then we can put the data that you've read onto that application, and then you'll have a clone of a passport. So he wrote this ePassport application, which you can download from the Hacker's Choice. It's not open source, but it's free. Okay, so you can just freely download it. There's also an open source implementation called JMRTD, which is the Java Machine Readable Travel Document. And they run on a thing called a Java card. So a Java card is a smart card. In this case, it's a smart card with an RFID chip as well. And it has a Java engine on it, and you can upload your Java program, and it will do whatever you program it to do. So I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of that. So, I need to turn the sound off. Damn it. Okay. Now this might seem like a stupid question, but does anyone have a passport they can lend me? Trust me, I'm a hacker. No? No one here with a passport? Okay. All right. So here's one I made earlier. Okay, so as I said, my passport doesn't have a chip in it. I used to take my son's when I spoke at conferences, but then he couldn't travel, so he got pissed off with that. So I made my own copy of his. So this is my son's passport. I was going to take it to the USA, to DEF CON and Black Hat, and I spoke to one of the EFF lawyers there, and she said it would be a really good idea if it didn't look too good, because if you want to come home again after your talk, you don't want to produce something that looks like a fake ID. Okay, so I made sure it's kind of crappy, and it actually says in big letters, you know, sample not to be used for identification, and the chip is clearly, you know, not as pretty as the original one. So, so hopefully, however, it does actually work. So if I put that on the reader, okay, so normally you would hand your passport to the guy at the border, and he would swipe it through a machine, and that would read the machine readable zone, so the printed letters at the bottom of the passport. But I don't have a swipe reader, so I just have to type it in. So Okay, so I've successfully logged into the passport. I'm now reading the data from it. It'll take a few minutes or a few seconds. Okay, so there, in all his glory, is my son. And so we've got his full name, date of birth, all the various details. We've got the actual image that they'll use to verify his identity at the border, or potentially to do facial recognition or whatever biometric they're going to do to let him into the country. And in fact, in the UK passports, there are some biometrics stored which tell the system where the center of the eyes is, and I guess they're going to use that to sort of bootstrap the facial recognition process. So, so the question originally when this came out was, okay, so you've read the passports, big deal, you know, you've taken data that you've already got because you've got the passport in your hand. You can't actually do anything with it. So, you know, I have these conversations with the UK government, so like the Home Office, I'll publish something in the papers. We don't have the conversations face to face. We do it via a journalist in a newspaper. So I'll do something and he'll publish it in the paper, and then the Home Office will publish an argument against it, or a denial or whatever, and then I'll publish something, and so it goes backwards and forwards. So the Home Office's first reaction when I did this was, yeah, okay, so you can read it, big deal, you've already got the passport, so what? So then we came up with this where we could clone them, and they said, okay, so you can copy it, big deal. You still have to forge a passport, but you can't change it. You know, you can't change the content because it's cryptographically secure. So we thought we would test that. So if I let's do. So this is my own data, and again we've got the biometrics and so on. If I wanted to maybe change that image, yeah? So we've now got my data but someone else's image. Actually, that's probably not what I would do. I would do something like, I would keep my image, but I would change the data. So in this case, I've upgraded myself to a United Nations specialized agency official. I have my own document number, change the date of birth and so on, but I still have the correct biometrics. So if I now use an automated system to cross a border, potentially I'll get through, but the records will show that this United Nations guy came through. Yeah. And of course I could change the name and so on. So the question was, would that work? So what we can do is try writing that. So I'm dumping this to a JCOP card which has the application already running. Takes a little while. You'll notice there's some extra data in here. So as well as the face, I've now got fingerprints as well. Okay, so I've written that one out. So there's a tool called Golden Reader Tool. So the only metric we had for testing this was to go back to the guys who designed the specification in the first place and say, how would you test an implementation, or how would you test a card to see if it's genuine? And they said, well, there's this thing called the Golden Reader Tool, which was developed by the German border authorities, and if it passes that, then it's good. Okay. So this is why I stopped using Windows some time ago. Golden Reader Tool just disappeared. Oh, okay. So it's back. Okay, that's just weird. Okay, so if I... where's my reader? Okay, so we're running Golden Reader tool. This is the tool that will tell us if this is a good passport or not, eventually. So I just have to configure it to use my card. So I'm going to use that one. Okay, that would be bad. So that little horn is it saying, no, I don't like that. There's something wrong. You've changed this. Okay, so it's detected the fact that I've changed the content. So now, so basically, you see these little red squares. Because they're red, that means it's failed. Okay, Golden Reader tool. We want to see golden squares, and then we're golden. Okay, So what we can do, and the reason that that happens is if you look at the data, what they've done is these are the files that are stored on the card, but then there's also this thing, the security object. And what the security object contains is a bunch of hashes for the other files. So if the hashes don't match the file, then you know it's been tampered with. So that you know the security object itself hasn't been tampered with, it's digitally signed. Okay, and so the digital signature you can check against this. That's the public certificate, or the CA certificate that was issued by the UK Passport Authority, domestic country signing authority. So I can check the hashes, I can check the signature, I can check the signatures were signed by the CA, and then I know everything's good. Yeah? Anyone spot the deliberate mistake in that equation? Yeah. Yeah, so there's nothing to stop me. Basically, the certificate we're checking against and the signature we're checking have both been given to us by the untrusted object. So it's like, okay, here's your certificate and here's the thing to check. Oh, what a surprise, they match. Yeah. So if I go and re-sign, so a guy in New Zealand called Peter Gutman and Jerome and I sort of got together and figured out how to re-sign the content. So if I just run this little program and now we look at that data again, so now the certificate was issued by Dave's Wetterburgers, and Dave himself signed it. So, you know, I'm definitely golden. So I've already written that to this card. So if I go and actually look at the new card, so we've now got all the data groups reading. We've got the nice little gold boxes saying we're golden. I don't know if any of you have been following this, but in the UK, I'm now having another discussion with the Home Office about the UK ID cards. So the ID cards apparently have some extra protection because they have fingerprints. And they're currently saying there's no point in talking to me about the vulnerabilities I've found because it's impossible to create a cloned ID card with fingerprints in it that will fool the systems. There's extra security in there. So this they don't want to see, or this. So you can actually produce a clone of a card with fingerprints. So anyone here from the Home Office, let me in. I'll tell you all about it. They secure it with extended access control, yeah. Yeah. They're supposed to, yes. So they tried to, shall we say. So that's why it's impossible. So what you just saw there didn't actually happen. Okay, so I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly... So yeah, I'm going to whiz through to why I think this is a problem. So the problem is automated systems. So the whole point of biometric passports is to cut out the human, allow you to just walk up to a border and present your passport and walk through. You're seeing these all over the place now. If you have an ePassport, you can just walk up, present your passport, and in you go. So they kind of look like this. There's no staff around, it's just a machine. You walk up, here's a screen, you put your card on here. This one was closed, they obviously knew I was coming. So, but you stick your passport in there, and then it tells you proceed to the next stage. It then does some form of biometric, either fingerprints, hand geometry, whatever. So in this case, it's facial recognition. You stand in front of this camera, and you sort of maneuver yourself until the face is in the right position, and then it says OK, and it opens the gate. All sounds very high-tech and super-duper. I was at a airport recently, and I didn't use the machine because I did want to go home again afterwards. But as I walked through the back, I passed one of those offices. You know, you get those offices with like shiny mirrored glass and so on. And there was a guy coming out, and as he opened the door, I saw inside there were 3 guys sitting there, and they had 2 of these screens in front of each of them. And on the screen was popping up the picture from the passport and the picture from the camera, and they were pressing a button that said yes or no. Super high tech. Okay. So anyway, I've put together some more videos which illustrate some of the more glaring issues with this whole thing. So this is what I thought was the vision of the designers. Okay, so this is how they want the whole system to appear to us and to operate.
This project has completely confiscated my life, darling. Consumed me as only hero work can. My best work, I must admit. Simple, elegant, yet bold. You will die. I did Robert Soot, and it turned out so beautiful. I had to continue.
It's great to see you, but I gotta tell you, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yes, words are useless. Come. Too much of it, darling, too much. That is why I show you my work. That is why you are here. Edna mode. And guess.
So yeah, super smooth. This is how you'll get into the country in future. So this is the reality, okay?
Wants to bring in ID cards with retina scans and 49 items of information. ID cards won't stop your identity being stolen. It just means that once it's stolen, you're fucked. You know, I've left my wallet in the hotel. I'm going to need new eyeballs and a finger transplant.
And then there's the whole question, we've talked about like hacking the card itself, but what if you hack the subject rather than the card? Okay, so again, we talked about facial recognition, so this was what I thought you could maybe do.
Sarah is a professional at skin grafting and laser valmorification.
Just try to be still.
verification completely worked.
Sit up and take a look, Gary.
It's uncanny.
You're going to fool everyone, Gary. Or should I say, Ahmed.
Spooky, huh? And then there's the whole question of identity theft. So what if somebody steals your biometric? We saw the retina scan in the Incredibles clip.
Let's get this over quickly.
Retina coding accepted, Warden William Smithers. Be well.
Yeah, you too.
Yummy. And then there's the whole, is alive. Well, we haven't really played with that, so. But yes, theoretically it would be possible. But then, I mean, I've seen those arguments. There was a vehicle where they used a fingerprint scan, and I think it was in Kuala Lumpur or somewhere, where they stole a car because they steal cars, and they couldn't get it to start. So they grabbed the guy and they brought him back. They carjacked the car and they threw the guy out, and they wanted to drive away and they couldn't. So they grabbed the guy and they realized they needed a fingerprint. So they chopped his finger off and they used the finger as the fingerprint. And the manufacturers said, well, no problem, we'll just make it detect if the finger's alive or not. So, we'll check that it's the body temperature. And it's like, well, there's two problems with that. One is, okay, the guy who lost his finger doesn't get his finger back because you've now protected it. And even if it's the new system, they don't know that it isn't going to work until they try it. So they're still going to chop your finger off to try it. And the other thing is, you can keep a finger at body temperature. So, what do you think the youngest member of the gang is for? It's like, store this somewhere that's going to keep it warm. Okay. So, not a great plan. So yeah, then you've got the whole question of revocation. So.
Sorry about this, Stevie.
So here are revoking his credentials. Just make sure, yep, that's it, fully revoked. And then same for fingerprints.
Okay. Yes! Always be closing! Right here! Right now! Before I change my mind! Hey! Go, let's go. Get this shit over and done with.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. This is one of those moments in time none of us are ever gonna forget. Norman, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ted, are you ready?
Ready.
Okie dokie, Norman. Begin.
Ah! My finger! My fucking finger! Just to my fucking finger, man! It's on my fucking finger! Oh, it hurts so hard! It's right! Oh, my fucking finger! Just to it's on my fucking finger!
This will be how it is when you go and have your credentials revoked. It'll be all very jolly and nice. There's also the question of denial of service. So if I want to just stop your biometric from working. So hand geometry is a fairly common biometric system. You just had lunch, right? Yeah, okay. So.
I'm just curious. I saw you shuffling your checks with your right hand. Can you do that with both hands?
No.
Can't do it with both hands.
No, sir.
Can you do it with your left hand?
Oh, I never tried.
So you're a righty?
Yeah.
Now you're gonna have to learn with your left hand.
Yep, when you're not getting in the office anymore. So. And then there's the final one, again, hand geometry. But what happens when your biometric goes really, really bad and you just want to revoke it yourself?
Oh, my tooth. You broke my tooth. Who's laughing now? Who's laughing
Yes, yes, son. Take your biometric passport and off you go into the world. It'll be fine. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, so scary stuff. Please get biometrics right if you're going to implement them, because I don't want to be chopping bits of myself off. That would be nice. Any questions?